Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, please. Online students, am I audible? All of you? Please respond.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
Thank you
sir.
so much. Yeah, thank you. So at the outset, you all know what has happened at our Delhi center last week, right? Well, it was very unfortunate and tragic incident, which should not have happened. So this incident has been actually a very traumatic experience for us uh, to see actually what has happened. So uh, there's a lot of negativity going around in the media. You must have seen that, right? There's so much of negativity which is going around. So I just want to assure all of you guys that all the faculties of RAU'S IAS, we are with you. We do realize that you have joined RAU'S IAS for the kind of quality education that we have been providing. And let me reiterate our commitment that we'll continue to provide the quality education which we have been providing so far. We do realize our commitment, our obligation towards the students. We're not going to leave you in between. We'll ensure that we fulfill all our commitments. And at the same time, I just also want to say that since this is a very difficult times, and I do think that the test of character of a person is when a person actually faces adversity, right? So these are the adverse times for us. So my appeal to all of you is that we need your support as well. We are ready to support you, but we want your support as well. And I really don't want to talk about this particular incident much. So let's get on with the class. Okay. And please, I don't want to take any questions related to this particular incident. I hope you understand about it, right? Online students, I hope it is clear. Everyone?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
And at the same time, we also understand that students who have been writing mains, they have lost their crucial time. Do not worry. We are ready to compensate for the time lost. We will compensate for the time lost by probably taking extra classes on the weekends. And if need arises, we will have a longer class as well. Like instead of having 2 hours class, we can have 3 hours class as well. The idea is to ensure that we are able to complete the entire main syllabus as early as possible, right? So be ready to attend the classes on weekend as well as to sit for longer hours in the class. Okay, fine. So we'll be starting with the mains QIP classes for the Indian economy. So before I start with the QIP class for the Indian economy, let me just tell you as to how this particular class is.
Sir, sorry to interrupt. Could you please share the screen?
Yeah, I'll do that. Okay, so this is the brief structure of the QIP class as to what all things we shall be covering in this particular module. So as you can see, first and foremost, we'll understand the overall importance of Indian economy. When I say overall importance of Indian economy from the perspective of mains, here we shall look at the syllabus, which the UPSC has mentioned in GS paper 3. Then the relative weightage of Indian economy in GS paper 3 in last 7 to 8 years. And if you look at the syllabus of Indian economy, within Indian economy, you have different pillars like agriculture, industrial policy, PDS. So we'll look at what is the relative weightage of different pillars within the Indian economy. This is basically an analysis of the trend in the last 5 to 6 years. Based upon the analysis, we will understand as to what are the key takeaways for the mains 2024. How should you prepare for mains 2024? Apart from that, we shall be discussing the most important themes and topics. You must understand that this is not a foundation class. This is a QIP class. It is an advanced course. So obviously, it's very difficult to cover the entire length and breadth of the syllabus. So we shall be covering the most important themes and topics for the upcoming mains examination. To understand these important themes and topics, we shall be adopting a 360-degree approach. The idea here is, if at all any question is asked from a particular topic, you should be able to write answer to any question from that particular topic. Let me just explain this with an example. The first part of your syllabus is growth and development. And there's also a topic of mobilization of resources. So with respect to mobilization of resources, there is one topic about savings in India. So when you prepare for the topic of savings, you should prepare this topic in a holistic manner. For example, you should know what do you mean by savings, why are important for the growth and development, what are the present trends in terms of savings in the economy, what are the challenges with respect to mobilization of savings. So this 360-degree approach, if you adopt, can I say that if any question is asked with respect to savings in mains, you will have adequate content to write it. That we shall be doing for all the topics which I'm going to cover. Nextly, when I start discussing a particular topic, before starting the topic, I will show you in what way questions are likely to be asked from that particular topic. And I will show you probably 3 to 4 practice questions. So once we discuss the topic, out of these 3 to 4 practice questions, I will probably take one practice question and I'll tell you how can you structure the answer. And more importantly, how do you convert a average answer into an excellent answer? You need to do a lot of value addition. How do you do value addition? All of these things I shall be covering. And I shall also be discussing the approach to answer writing, right? And last and most important is, out of these 3 to 4 practice questions, like I said, one practice question, I shall be discussing the structure. There might be remaining 1 or 2 practice questions. And as a name suggests, practice questions means these are the questions which you should actually practice answer writing. And probably you can show those answers to me as well so that I can give you the feedback on those answers. So this is the structure of the QIP mains. I hope I made myself clear. So let's quickly run through the syllabus for the UPSC mains. I hope everyone has seen the syllabus. But what I have done, I have broken down the entire UPSC syllabus into 5 pillars. The topics which are related to one another, I have placed them under one single pillar. That way, the entire syllabus, I have arranged them in 5 pillars. And I would say, please remember these 5 pillars. They are very important. Why it is important is, sometimes, when a question is asked, you may find it difficult to generate points. I hope you're getting this point. So to generate enough number of points, if you have that pillared approach, you can actually write at least, let me tell you, 10 to 12 points. You may not be convinced from what I'm saying. I'll actually prove in the class when I'm discussing a topic as to how by using those 5 pillars, you can generate good number of points. Okay. So what are those 5 pillars? You can see the 5 pillars. First pillar is your growth and development. When I say growth, growth is more confined to GDP. When I say development, it is both GDP plus inclusive growth, right? So this is one pillar. Second pillar is budgeting and taxation. Third pillar is agriculture, PDS, land reforms and food processing. Fourth one is industrial policy and LPG. And fifth one is infrastructure and investment. So please do remember the five pillars, right? Growth and development, budgeting and taxation, agriculture, industrial policy, and infrastructure. Now, for example, let's say there's a question on what are the challenges before the vision of Viksit Bharat? If India wants to become a Viksit Bharat by 2047, what are the challenges before India to become a Viksit Bharat? Suddenly when you get such a broad-based question, will be thinking, what points should I write? Can I say you can easily generate points by having this pillared approach? Growth and development. You can actually talk about the GDP growth. You can talk about the inclusive growth. You can talk about budgeting, right? For example, when you see government expenditure, it is categorized into revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. Whose share is higher? Revenue expenditure share is higher, right? Same way, you can write some problems related to agriculture. You can write problem related to land. You can also highlight about the failure of manufacturing sector. You must understand India cannot truly become Atmanirbhar unless we boost our manufacturing sector. Same way, we have so much of infrastructure deficits in India. So you can easily generate at least 10 to 12 points with respect to what are the challenges before the realization of Viksit Bharat. So please remember these five pillars. In fact, repeatedly, I will keep reinforcing this in the class when I'm discussing the topics. Is that clear? Okay. So let's quickly look into the relative weightage of Indian economy in GS paper 3. GS paper 3 comprises of different subjects. You have Indian economy, environment and biodiversity, science and technology, disaster management, and internal security. Out of all of these subjects, the subject which gets the highest weightage is actually the Indian economy. So can you see here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Out of these 5 subjects, consistently, the weightage given to Indian economy is around 100 marks. So out of 250 marks, 100 marks is from Indian economy. So if you see each of the GS papers, they are dominated by one core subject. For paper 3, it is economy, right? Within Indian economy, like I said, you have different pillars. I just showed you the 5 pillars: agriculture, growth and development, budgeting, industrial policy, and infrastructure. Out of these 5 pillars, you can very well see the pillar of agriculture, land reforms, food processing, and PDS has the highest weightage. So, in paper 3, economy on an average has a weightage of 100 marks. Within this 100 marks, can you see 50% of the marks are actually allocated to agriculture? So it's a major chunk of your syllabus. And agriculture is in turn followed by the theme of growth and development. Just add these 2 marks, 50 plus 30, 50 plus 30 is 80. So 80% of your syllabus is dominated by just 2 pillars. Is that clear? Okay. So let's understand the key takeaways that is how should you prepare for the mains 2024. The first key takeaway here is if you carefully analyze the previous year mains questions, a lot of questions have been asked directly from the syllabus line. A case in point is role of e-technology in agriculture. This was the question asked in previous year mains. Directly, role of e-technology is there. From there, UPSC has asked a question. Similarly, there is a topic, direct and indirect farm subsidies. This was a question asked last time for 15 marks, actually. So what I'm trying to make you understand is carefully look at the syllabus, and wherever relevant, for each and every line in the syllabus, you should have adequate content ready. You must understand prelims is very dicey. Prelims is unpredictable, but mains is more predictable because there is a syllabus which is mentioned, and UPSC has a tendency to ask questions directly from the syllabus. And you know how is the best way to prepare for that? For each and every line in the syllabus, you need to have one pager notes. One pager notes, you have to revise them thoroughly. And that is what I have done in the PPTs as well. Second key takeaway is sometimes UPSC has been asking questions from current affairs as well. A case in point is V-shaped recovery. You know what actually happened? During COVID, the GDP growth fell down drastically. In fact, the GDP growth rate was negative. After COVID, there was this strong and sharp rebound of the GDP. Can you see the shape of recovery? It is V-shaped. So government said that it is a V-shaped recovery. But some economists, they said it is not V-shaped. They said rather it is K-shaped recovery. It means the recovery is uneven. That is what they are saying. So this had become a matter of debate in news. That is why in UPSC mains, there's a question. Do you think Indian economy has shown a V-shaped recovery? Give arguments in support of your answer. Is that clear? Extrapolating the same concept, I don't know how many of you have heard of this. Recently, RBI published a report. In its report, RBI has highlighted that the financial savings of the households has declined to 47-year low, 5-decade low. Government says, no need to worry. Economist says, it is actually a cause of concern. Can you see the debate? Can I say the debate is similar to the debate about V-shaped recovery? I hope you are getting this point, right? So you need to integrate current affairs into the syllabus wherever it is relevant. Like I said, there are some topics in the syllabus which are very straightforward. For example, role of e-technology in agriculture. But there are some topics which are just indicative in nature. I'll say one topic, employment. Now, when I say employment, what do you study about employment? Can I say it's a very open-ended topic? So we need to extrapolate from this topic of employment as to what kind of questions can be expected. Same way, there is one topic, mobilization of resources. Look at this topic, government budgeting. There's one line, that's it, government budgeting. So on your own, we have to extrapolate that these are the topics related to government budgeting, which becomes important. And let me tell you how I have done that in the QIP class. Can you see? This is inclusive growth. syllabus, they mentioned inclusive growth and issues arising from it. That's it. Now, how do you prepare for such a topic? What I've done, the entire theme of inclusive growth, I have broken down into sub themes. For example, you can see inclusive growth, inequality in India. I hope everyone is aware of the rising inequality, which has been highlighted by multiple reports. Poverty in India, in particular, look at this MPI, multi-dimensional poverty index. Is it a right indicator to measure poverty? So this is one topic. Same way, vulnerable sections. Remember last time, can anyone tell me what is the question related to inclusive growth? No, it is not related to SSG. What is the question from the inclusive? Care economy. Difference between care economy and monetized economy. Where do you think this topic fits in? This topic fits in with respect to women-led development. Yes. Same SHG model, senior citizens, which is basically about silver economy. Balanced regional development, new welfare approach. What is this new welfare approach? The Office of Chief Economic Advisor had published a document called as Indian Economy a Review. In its document, the Chief Economic Advisor has highlighted that government is following a new approach to bring about welfare. Don't you think it is a potential question in the mains as to what is this new welfare approach? And has the new welfare approach actually paid off? So this is what I have done with respect to inclusive growth. Same way, I've done this with respect to budgeting. Please take your time, have a look at it. Look at expenditure management. What is the topic there? Capital expenditure and freebies. It's a very potential question. Same way, fiscal federalism. Disinvestment. Global minimum corporate tax, GST, right? Then tax on agricultural income, which was in news. Look at this. Debt sustainability. You must have heard about GIRD, growth interest rate differential, or IRGD. So that topic. Okay. Next is, like I said, we have to focus on the value addition. That is how you convert an average answer into an excellent answer. So what I've done before starting each and every section, to make it easier for you, I have prepared this particular fact sheet. This is a fact sheet which is there for the theme of inclusive growth. And look what I mentioned there. It is not just important from the perspective of economy. It is also equally important from the perspective of paper 1, paper 2, as well as essay. Look at important facts related to inequality, India's progress in poverty eradication, education, health, gender gap, women-led development, energy poverty, silver economy. Okay, when you look at so much of facts and figures, you might think, how will I even remember this, right? Don't worry. In the class, I will be repeating these facts and figures so many times that it will get ingrained in your mind. Do not worry about that. That is my responsibility to ensure that you are able to remember the facts and figures. Clear with that? Okay. So can you see when you want to do value addition in the answer, please remember this particular keyword. BCCDEF. B stands for budget. If you're able to recall something from the budget, use it here. C for committee, case studies, diagram, economic survey, and facts. Next is answer writing practice. Okay. If you carefully observe the UPSC mains questions, UPSC has a tendency where 10 marker question, it is asking as a 15 marker. 15 marker question, it is asking as a 10 marker. Example, there's a question on PDS. What are the challenges of public distribution system? Discuss various strategies. If you are writing answer to this question, you would have at least 15 points. So ideally, can I say this question should be asked for 15 marks? But this question was asked for only 10 marks. So just having content is not sufficient. You should have a knack of converting that content into answer within the limited words. Clear with that? Same way, there was a question. What is integrated farming system? How does integrated farming system help small and marginal farmers? And this question, let me tell you, was asked for 15 marks. Ideally, this question should have been asked for 10 marks. So what is important is you need to have good answer writing skills. And last and most important, what source should you refer to? Let me say the primary source, as far as the mains QIP class is concerned, the primary source shall be your mains revision PPT. And let me tell you, the mains revision PPT might have somewhere around 550 to 600 slides. And that alone is more than sufficient. There's no need for you to look at any other source. But at the same time, because of time constraints, I might not be able to cover some topics. Those remaining topics you need to cover from where? Mains compass. But which topic should you cover from mains compass? Only those topics which have not been covered in the class. Is that clear, everyone? And some of the online students were asking this doubt. What about budget and economic survey? Generally, every time whenever budget and economic survey is released, I prepared separate videos on budget and economic survey. But this time, as you know, it is not quite possible because I'm busy with you guys for the mains QIP. So what I have done, wherever possible, I have integrated budget and economic survey into the QIP PPT itself, wherever it is relevant. And at the same time, once I'm done with the class, I shall prepare the separate videos on budget and economic survey. You need not worry about it. Is that clear, everyone? Any one of you has any doubts with respect to anything what I discussed so far? Anyone? Online students?
It's very clear, sir. Thank you.
Okay, fine. Thank you so much.
So for the data, should we remember the source as well?
Sorry?
Should we remember the sources as well for the data?
Okay, let me tell you, I have taken the data from multiple sources. The only reason why I have not added the source is it will become too much cumbersome for you to remember the source also. So at least try to remember the data. If someone is checking your paper, if he or she feels that the data is not correct, probably they'll go and check. And for sure, do not worry. The data is correct only. Do not worry about it. Okay.
Also, sir, students of last year QIP, is there something which we should refer from that also, or should we leave it? Should we refer only this year QIP?
See, I would say if you compare this year's QIP and last year's QIP, I would say 60% would be same, 40% will be extra.
Okay, so should I refer anything or like if
Okay,
any
what you can
topic?
do, let's say you have already covered the topics from the previous year's QIP PPT, keep that as a base,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
On top of that, whatever new topics that you come across in this year's QIP, just add those topics.
Okay.
That is how you can synthesize the last year's QIP and this year's QIP.
Okay.
Clear with that? Okay, fine.
सर कंपास कब तक आ जाएगी?
कंपास आई थिंक आ गई है. Did you get the compass? Compass आ जाएगी. Do not worry. It is on ELEARN portal. Yeah.
ओके सर, ओके, थैंक यू.
Fine. Okay, let's have a look at the first line in your syllabus. The first line in your syllabus is actually planning, mobilization of resources, growth, and employment. So, in today's class, the idea is to cover planning and topic of growth. Planning and growth we shall be covering by the end of today's class. Tomorrow's class, we shall be covering the topic of mobilization of resources as well as employment. So what all topics I shall be covering? Just let me just show you. Please have a look at the topics for this entire section of growth and development, pillar 1. In pillar 1, growth and development, these are the topics. Like I said, in today's class, our focus will be on completing this one, planning, savings, consumption, and investment, and other drivers of growth. And tomorrow's class will start with Viksit Bharat, mobilization of resources, and employment. And I'm pretty sure after you cover these topics, there will be nothing left as far as pillar 1 is concerned. Clear with that? Okay. Okay. Let's start with the planning in India. You can just see with respect to planning in India, there was only one question in the last 10 years. The question was, how are the principles followed by NITI Aayog different from those followed by the erstwhile Planning Commission? And that question was asked in Mains 2018 for 15 marks. Only one question. So this topic is not that important. So we will quickly run through this particular topic. Probably it might take half an hour to 45 minutes. I will be done with the theme of planning. So with respect to planning, based upon the nature of questions which are likely to be asked, I have prepared 3 questions, where each of these 3 questions, they are focusing on one specific aspect of planning. First question is on different types of planning in India, its strengths and weaknesses. What is the difference between Planning Commission and NITI Aayog? And more importantly, when was NITI Aayog formed? 2014 was when the Planning Commission was dismantled. And we are in which year? 2024. So it's almost a decade since the formation of NITI Aayog. I think 1 decade is a right time to carry out a critical analysis of NITI Aayog, whether NITI Aayog has been able to fulfill the responsibilities which it has been assigned or not, right? Planning now has to be different from planning then. Analyze the statement in the context of planning in the market-led economy. Okay? Okay. So before I start with planning, I'm very sure most of you have studied the planning from the perspective of your prelims module, right? So let me first quickly take you through the basics of planning, and then we'll discuss it from the perspective of the mains examination. We all know that when India gained independence in 1947, Indian economy was completely underdeveloped. So much so that India's GDP size in 1947 was just $30 billion. That's it. Agriculture sector, as you know, was completely underdeveloped. And you must be knowing that India was a net importer of food grains. India had a very thriving manufacturing sector before British made an entry into India. But what did British do? They converted India into a supplier of raw materials and a market for finished goods. So India underwent deindustrialization during the British era. There was large-scale poverty and underdevelopment. So when India gained independence, we embarked on a journey to bring about holistic growth and development. We embarked on a journey of nation building. And that is when the planning originated. Any idea from which country we took the concept of planning? USSR.
USSR.
Exactly. So we borrowed this concept of planning from there, right? So to carry out planning, we set up two institutional structures. One was Planning Commission and the other one was National Development Council. Planning Commission's role was to formulate the 5-year plans, and the role of National Development Council was to approve the 5-year plans. That's what we know. And how many 5-year plans did we make in India? How many?
12.
We made 12 5-year plans. We made 12 5-year plans. We started from 1951, and the 12th 5-year plan ended in the year 2017, right? And Planning Commission, as you know, continued to function until 2014. And 2014 Planning Commission was replaced with NITI Aayog. This is brief about the planning. But look at the first question. What are the different types of planning adopted in India since independence? Anyone? What are the different types of planning we adopted in India? Types of planning. What are the different types of planning we adopted? Yes, someone said? Okay. Centralized? No. Okay, fine. The first thing, what actually happened, 1951, when we adopted planning, that time the planning in India was actually called as imperative planning or directed planning. Imperative planning or directed planning. When? 1951. That continued until 1990. You know what actually happened in 1990? LPG reforms. Because of LPG reforms, we shifted from imperative planning to indicative planning. So imperative planning is one, and then the next one is indicative. And what kind of planning are we following now? There's no planning. There's no 5-year plans for sure. There's no 5-year plans. We're not making 5-year plans now.
Are we following indicative planning?
No, indicative planning though ended when the Planning Commission ended. Because now we don't make 5-year plans as such. Sorry? Okay.
Is it prospective?
Please have a look at this. All of you. Planning in India has been shaped by political economic setup. I hope you agree with me on this. With change with polity, with change in economy, the planning has also changed accordingly. India has moved from pre-1991 imperative planning to post-1991 indicative planning. And now it focuses on what is called as strategic planning. Why are we saying strategic planning? Because now the role of NITI Aayog is not to make 5-year plans. The role of NITI Aayog is to lay down vision documents, 15-year vision. That is the role of NITI Aayog. And what kind of planning it is called as strategic planning. Clear with that? So let's quickly understand what is imperative planning and what is indicative planning. How are they different from one another? There's no need to write anything. I have made the PPT as concise as possible so that it serves as a ready-made reference for you for quick revision. So just pay attention. So we have imperative planning, or it is also called as directed planning, and there is indicative planning. Can you see here that imperative planning, directed planning, was adopted from 1951 to 1990. It is more suited to socialistic era. Socialistic era means an era which was more dominated by public sector, state-led development. Indicative planning was followed from 1991 to 2017, and it is more suited to which kind of economy? Market-led, where we are shifted from public sector-led to private sector-led. So how the nature of economy underwent a change, the nature of planning also underwent a change. Imperative planning was implemented by Planning Commission. Indicative planning was also implemented by Planning Commission until 2014. After it got dismantled, for next 3 years, it was under the implementation of NITI Aayog. How many 5-year plans were there? 12 5-year plans. Can you tell me, out of those 12 5-year plans, how many 5-year plans were under imperative planning? 11. 1990, I'm saying, right? So first 5-year plan to 7th 5-year plan, they were under imperative. Then you can see 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th. 5 5-year plans, they were under indicative planning. So this is a basic difference. But the question is, philosophically, what is the difference between imperative and indicative? Philosophically, please pay attention. In case of imperative planning, if you look at the role of the government, the role of the government was that of a planner, financer, as well as implementer. Government used to plan 5-year plans. After planning, government used to allocate the funds to ensure that the targets are met. And then government itself used to implement the plans, because that time it was more of public sector led economy. Let me just give you an example. Let's say in a particular 5-year plan, we set a target that we will construct 50,000 kilometers of national highways. A target is set. We have made a plan. We have set the target. After setting target, the government will allocate finances. Can you tell me, to whom will it allocate finances for construction of national highway? There's a specific agency, National Highway Authority of India. It will allocate money to NHAI. And ultimately, who is building national highways? National Highway Authority of India. Everything, can you see, is led by whom? Public sector. Government is planning, government is financing, government is implementing. In a way, it is like all pervasive. Everything is led by state, the government. What is indicative planning then? In case of indicative planning, the role of the government is more confined to what? Planning. Government will make plans, 5-year plans. In these 5-year plans, the government will set targets as well. But then, as far as financing is concerned, implementation is concerned, it becomes the responsibility of both public sector as well as private sector. How? Let's take the previous example, constructing 50,000 kilometers of national highways. Here the government was setting target, government was allocating finances, and government was actually constructing national highways. But now government will only set a target. Once the government set the target, it becomes the responsibility of the private sector to ensure that the targets are met. For that, you know what will government do? Government will create conditions conducive so that the private sector comes and actually builds national highways. And how will it do it? You must have heard about public-private partnership. So can I say it is more of collaborative approach between the government and the private sector? Earlier, everything was done by the government, but now it is more of collaboration. So in a way, I would say the role of government is redefined to be a coordinator, a enabler, and a facilitator. I hope it's clear, everyone. So you can see the next difference. Planner, financer, and implementer. There it is coordinator, enabler, and facilitator. The indicative planning, I would say it is more centralized planning. It was more of top-down approach. Can someone substantiate why was it top-down? It's not about that. Why it is considered as centralized or top-down? Huh?
So government decide where the highways.
Government obviously is deciding what is the target. And more importantly, you must understand, states had very limited role in formulation of 5-year plans. States' responsibility was more confined to approval of 5-year plans, where in NDC, National Development Council. So it is more of centralized, top-down. But when you see indicative planning, it is more of collaborative planning. Clear with that? Everyone? Okay. Now, you need to carry out a critical analysis. Critical analysis of imperative planning or directed planning. When I say critical analysis, it is not about criticism, understand. It is about highlighting the hits and misses. What were the positives and what were the negatives? Quickly, 30 seconds, I'm giving you. Please try to generate points as to what were the positives and negatives of this imperative planning or directed planning. And I told you, how do you generate points? The pillared approach. I hope you're able to recall all of the pillars. Try to generate points from there. 30 seconds, quickly. Online students, you can respond in the chat box. Okay, to help you generate points, the framework is there. Look at the framework. When I say growth, for promotion of growth, what is important? Savings, investment, exports and demand, employment, inclusive growth, budgeting, agriculture, food security, industries, and infrastructure. You can easily get at least 5 to 6 points. Yes, online students? Okay. Keep that framework in mind. Can anyone say a good point with respect to agriculture? Some good point related to agriculture? Green Revolution. I think it's the most easiest way. Green Revolution was implemented during the phase of this 5-year plans only, right? Can you say a good point with respect to industries?
So heavy
industries, that is iron and steel industry. Which 5-year plan? Second 5-year plan, Mahalanobis model. Can you name some initiatives of the government for poverty eradication during that time?
गरीबी हटाओ अभियान.
Garibi Hatao, then MJ Nayak came
So-
much later.
So
National
food for
Rural
work
Employment
employment.
Guarantee Program, Integrated Rural Development Program, 20-point program. Then anyone else? Yeah. Lead bank scheme, nationalization of banks, right? Okay, please pay attention now. Look at this hits, positives. Look at the first point which I mentioned. Can you say the imperative planning was more pragmatic? It was more practical. Why it was more pragmatic, practical? 1947, private sector was not developed in India. Could you actually rely on private sector to drive the Indian economy forward? Obviously not. So that is why imperative planning focused more upon public sector led model. So it is more pragmatic that way. Then you can see savings and investment increased in India. The GDP size in India, I told you, 1947, when India gained independence, our GDP size was somewhere around $30 billion. From $30 billion, it has increased to $250 billion. We focus on poverty reduction through schemes such as Integrated Rural Development Program, 20-point program, nationalization of banks, National Rural Employment Guarantee Program. We focus on balanced region development to ensure that there is a balanced region development. We focus on schemes, Command Area Development Program, Drought Prone Area Program, Desert Development Program, Hill Area Development Program, Tribal Area Development Program, right? Agriculture, Green Revolution, education. Our achievement was that we set up higher level educational institutes such as IIT and IIMs. I hope it is clear, right? And can you see from where I have generated these points? From this particular framework. See, what I'm basically doing here, I have not read in detail about the 5-year plans. But I know for sure what happened between 1950s to 1991. I'm just linking it to the 5-year plans. Because don't you think it is the responsibility of 5-year plans to ensure these things? Right? With respect to misses, what did we miss? Once again, I think it is pretty easy. Can you say a good point miss with respect to manufacturing sector? We do not focus much on manufacturing sector. Rather, to put it in more better words, we focus more on capital intensive industries rather than labor intensive industries. And what was the growth of the Indian economy during this phase called as? Hindu rate of growth. I hope you're getting that point. Hindu rate of growth, because our growth rate used to be around 3 to 4% only. The GDP growth in India was actually less. And from where did I generate that point? From growth. So you can just look at the misses. What did we miss? Hindu rate of growth, lower share of private sector investment, job-less growth. So it's like we grew, but we did not create enough number of jobs. It's a topic in itself. We'll be covering that. Agriculture. The problem in agriculture is we have high level of disguised unemployment. Green revolution, which is a success. I'm not denying it, but the green revolution also led to disparities. Regional disparity, crop disparity, and disparity in terms of farmers, because it benefited mainly the large farmers. Education. The problem with respect to education was that we focus more on higher educational institutes. We did not give much focus on universalization of primary education. The base is what is important. Right to education came much later. You must understand. Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan also came much later. We neglected the primary education. And please have a look at this part, budgeting. With respect to budgeting, earlier, during the time of planning commission, the expenditure of the government was categorized into two types: plan expenditure and non-plan expenditure. Plan expenditure was an expenditure which is generally incurred for creation of assets. We used to make 5-year plans and then allocate money, finances to ensure the targets are met. So that is plan expenditure. Non-plan expenditure is more related to what? Maintenance. To tell you in simple words, government's expenditure is revenue expenditure and capital expenditure. So we can think plan expenditure more as capital expenditure, non-plan expenditure more as what? Revenue expenditure. So what used to happen is, if a new national highway has to be constructed, that money was allocated from plan expenditure. But the maintenance of national highway was done from where? From non-plan expenditure. The problem which it created is, somehow this feeling was built that plan expenditure is something which is desirable. Plan expenditure is good and non-plan expenditure is undesirable, which meant that what we started doing is we started neglecting what? Maintenance. And no wonder you must be seeing, especially during that time, there was no dearth of infrastructure. The problem was poor maintenance of infrastructure. I hope you understood that point. So that is another problem with respect to imperative planning. Clear? Okay.
Sir?
Hindu rate of growth is, some people, they say that the growth before 1991 was low GDP growth. And that low GDP growth, they call it as Hindu rate of growth. Some economists, not everyone, they say why they call it as Hindu. Because if you look at our way of life says that we have to be content with what we are having right now. We should not have a lot of aspirations. So it is like saying that India was content being growing at just 3 to 4%. That is why it is called as Hindu rate of growth. Yeah, someone from the online batch? Okay. Is that clear, everyone? Same way, you have to look at the points with respect to what? Indicative planning. I have just put the points. I hope you can just go through this. Just go through these points. There's nothing to explain. There's a word which I've used, low employment elasticity. We'll cover that, do not worry. I told you there's a separate theme, employment, we'll be covering that. Apart from these two, planning, what are the other plans that we adopted? There's a strategic planning, yes. Then something happened in between. There's some political party which came into power.
So,
they decided
rolling
to do
planning.
rolling plans. Good. There was rolling plan in between, and that rolling plan was implemented by Janata Party government. What was this rolling plan? See, basically the Janata Party government which came into power, they thought if you make 5-year plans, long-term plans, that is for 5 years, they will be very inflexible. We cannot keep making changes. So instead of making the 5-year plans, they shifted to annual plans or a kind of rolling plans, planning for short term. But it was not very successful. And then in your polity classes, you must have heard about there's another kind of planning which we adopted. 73rd, 74th Amendment Act, it introduced the concept of decentralized planning. You must be knowing about DPC, District Planning Committee, and MPC, Metropolitan Planning Committee. So decentralized planning has also been adopted. So just think of the different plans which you have adopted. Number one, imperative, indicative, rolling, then the decentralized, and then lastly now is strategic planning, right? So you can see rolling plans, strategic planning. Strategic planning, like I said, there's a 15-year vision document, 7-year strategy document, and 3-year action agenda. That is what NITI Aayog is supposed to do. Later, we'll see whether has it done its work or not, because that is part of the critical analysis. Decentralized planning through PRIs and urban local bodies. Clear with that? Okay. So can you see what I have tried to do? The entire topic of planning, I just tried to concise it one single slide so that it becomes quite easier for you to revise it faster. Look at this question. What are the different types of planning adopted in India since independence? Critically evaluate their performance. I think it's pretty easy now. Can anyone think of a possible introduction to this? Anyone? Take your time. Introduction. See, everyone knows what to be written in the body of the answer. Where do people get stuck? What to write in the introduction and what to write in the conclusion? Should you start with that? Naresh says objectives of planning can be written. Good. Then? Evolution of Planning Commission. Okay. Then? Anyone else? See, always, I would say that your introduction should provide a bird's eye view of what is to come in the body of the answer. So bird's eye view would be something like this, that planning in India has shifted from pre-1991 imperative planning to post-1991 indicative planning to strategic planning under NITI Aayog. This is a very broad-based introduction, which actually addresses the demand of the question. Because what is the question asking you? The question is asking you, what are the different types of planning? In fact, I'll tell you. Can you see the statement which I made? Can the same statement be used as an intro or not? That is what I have done in the slides. Clear with that? The same thing can be used as an intro. Body of the answer, what you need to do? They are asking what are the different types of planning and critically evaluate their performance. First one, imperative planning, evaluate the performance. Second one, indicative planning, evaluate its performance. And then at last, we can also say, apart from these two plans, we have also adopted strategic planning, decentralized planning. Is that clear? Conclusion. What do you think should be the conclusion? It has to be kind of way forward, right? So what is a actual way forward? I think the conclusion you'll be able to get it right when I discuss the role of NITI Aayog. So when I say that NITI Aayog has not fulfilled its role properly, don't you think the conclusion should be that NITI Aayog as a body has to be changed? We'll discuss about that, not worry about it. So one biggest problem with NITI Aayog is that NITI Aayog does not enjoy legitimacy and leadership. When I say legitimacy, it means NITI Aayog is not a statutory body. When I say it does not enjoy leadership, it means the chairperson of NITI Aayog does not enjoy the status of cabinet minister. So what we have to do? We have to create NITI Aayog as a statutory body and give more prominence to the chairperson of NITI Aayog. That we will discuss that. So you can just see here the suggested answer structure.
So can we also mention about the vision of 5 trillion economy?
Which
in
one?
the- So can we also mention about the vision of 5 trillion economy, how it can be
I
achieved?
have mentioned Viksit Bharat. So in fact, I would say instead of writing 5 trillion, write 7 trillion, because I think 5 trillion is easily achievable. The target is to achieve $7 trillion economy by end of 2030. Okay. Clear with that? Okay. Now let's look at the next one. That is Planning Commission versus NITI Aayog. Remember I showed you that question? What are the principles followed by NITI Aayog? How are they different from Planning Commission? That is what we are going to discuss. So what I have done here is, first we'll understand the problems with Planning Commission and how these problems are sought to be addressed by the NITI Aayog. Let's understand the problems one by one. Look at the first problem. Planning Commission, as you know, was more suited to the pre-1991 socialistic era, an era which was more dominated by public sector, right? So when we shifted to indicative planning, we thought that Planning Commission is not the right organization. The second problem with respect to Planning Commission is Planning Commission had a very limited role because its role was mainly confined to formulation of 5-year plans and allocation of finances. We wanted an organization which can fulfill a much larger role, an organization whose role is not just confined to planning and allocation. How did we address that? We'll get to know that. Third, and the most controversial, I would say, is the power of Planning Commission to allocate the finances. This is the most problematic role of Planning Commission. Why did it create problems? Anyone? It overlapped its functions with the Finance Commission, and then apart from that? Okay.
So not consulting states and imposing
Yes.
states.
Yes. Good. So here, sabse pehle, there was overlapping of functions with the Finance Ministry and the Finance Commission. Let's focus on the Finance Ministry. So what used to happen earlier, all the ministries and departments in India, they used to get finances from the Finance Ministry as well as from the Planning Commission. They used to get finances from both. The problem here is that the Finance Ministry is headed by Finance Minister, and Finance Minister is actually accountable to whom? To the Parliament. But the deputy chairperson of Planning Commission, was not accountable to the Parliament in a way. And in fact, it happened so that the deputy chairperson of Planning Commission became as powerful as a Finance Minister of India itself. For example, during UPA era, The deputy chairperson of Planning Commission was Mr. Montek Singh Ahluwalia. So he had become a kind of finance minister in himself. Do you understand that point? So there was overlapping of functions between the Planning Commission and Finance Ministry. The second problem is overlapping of functions between Planning Commission and Finance Commission. In what way? See, states, they do get money from Planning Commission as well as the Finance Commission. Finance Commission is a constitutional body. Planning Commission is not even a statutory body. Finance Commission, when it gives grants to the states, these grants are called as untied grants. But when Planning Commission used to give grants to states, these grants were called as, look at the word, tied grants. Why tied grants? It means that if Planning Commission is giving some finances to the states, Planning Commission used to impose conditions on the states that the money should be used for a particular purpose only. It cannot be diverted for other purpose. The problem here is that, don't you think it is hurting the financial autonomy as well as operational autonomy of the states? States were working under the Planning Commission, which is actually a non-statutory body. Clear with that, everyone? So, you know what we have done? We have replaced Planning Commission now with NITI Aayog. And after replacing Planning Commission with NITI Aayog does not transfer finances to the states. Whatever finances earlier used to come from Planning Commission, those finances are coming from where? Finance Commission. For example, 13th Finance Commission recommended 32% of taxes collected by center should be transferred to the states. 14th Finance Commission increased this share to how much? 42. Why suddenly it jumped from 32 to 42? Whatever money was coming from Planning Commission, that money is now coming from what? Finance Commission. Don't you think it is good? Because now all of this grant is what? Untied. It is in a way promoting fiscal federalism. Clear? Chairperson of Planning Commission of the Prime Minister. Chairperson was Prime Minister. I'm talking about the Deputy Chairperson. Then we also discussed the distinction between plan and non-plan expenditure, net to neglect of maintenance related expenditure. We have already covered that. And look at this. Transfer of tied grants with the Planning Commission to states affected the financial and operational autonomy of the states. And we have already covered why it was more of centralized planning. The reason is simple. The role of states was confined more to approval of 5-year plans. They are not actually involved in formulation of 5-year plans. Right? And lastly, Planning Commission you must have heard, it had become a kind of super cabinet. So, to address these problems related to Planning Commission, we have now come up with the NITI Aayog. In what way NITI Aayog is solving these problems? Let's see this. Okay. NITI Aayog is more suited to strategic planning. What is strategic planning? Let me just give an example. When I say strategic planning, it means we should anticipate what problems could arise in future. It is not just countering the present problems, anticipating the future problems. And after anticipating the future problems, developing solutions to the future problems now only, so that the problems do not arise in the first place. Best example I can give you, water crisis. You know, India is facing the worst water crisis. And with climate change, the water crisis is going to be further accentuated. Should we wait for the water crisis to occur? We should now itself start preparing to handle the water crisis. So what NITI Aayog has started doing, it has started publishing a report called as Composite Water Management Index Report. It is like being prepared. It's like saying we are not doing firefighting. We are doing more of fireproofing. Fireproofing means ensuring that the fire does not erupt in the first place. Prevention. I hope you understood the significance of NITI Aayog as compared to what? Planning Commission. Second thing, Planning Commission's role was limited to planning and allocation. Can you think? NITI Aayog, in what way it is playing a multi-dimensional role? Think. What all additional role is NITI Aayog performing? Sorry? Evaluate. There's no plan only, so what will you evaluate? Sorry? Huh? Okay. Evaluating the performance of states. Okay. Okay. Someone's rightly mentions think tank. As a think tank, the NITI Aayog is involved in policy formulation, giving policy advice to the government. Best example of a think tank, I told you, Composite Water Management Index. On similar lines, NITI Aayog has published a report as to what should be done to promote electric mobility in India. It is the role of think tank to give policy advice to the government. Getting at that point? So let's see the multidimensional role of NITI Aayog. Look at this. As a think tank, it is making India future ready to handle the future problems. Example of which is Composite Water Management Index, Responsible AI. It has published a report on that. How to promote electric mobility. Look at this. Monitoring and evaluation. We are implementing so many schemes, so many policies. Are these schemes and policies actually making a visible impact or not? Someone has to make a critical evaluation of these policies, and that is being done by NITI Aayog. Example of which is MPI, Multidimensional Poverty Index, SDG, Sustainable Development Goal India Index. So government is implementing so many policies so that we are able to meet SDGs. Someone has to evaluate whether the policies are working on ground or not. Achieving coordination between the ministries. Okay, and this is actually very important. Let's see. We want to improve educational outcomes in India. We want to improve educational outcomes. The primary responsibility of providing education is that of Ministry of Education. But you must understand there are some things which require multi-sectoral approach. If you want to improve educational outcomes, don't you think eradication of poverty is as important as imparting education to a school-going kid? If people are poor, do you think people will even send their students or kids to school? Probably not. Apart from that, improving educational outcomes also requires children to have proper nutrition. This is mainly the responsibility of Ministry of Rural Development. This is a responsible Ministry of Family and Health Welfare. And this is Ministry of Education. Can you see? 3 to 4 ministries should actually come together to ensure that we get good outcomes. And who will do that? NITI Aayog as a coordinator. How is it doing it? The best example which I can think of is aspirational district program. I hope all of you must be knowing about it. There are some backward districts in India. We are not calling them as backward. Rather, we are calling them as aspirational. The basic idea of aspirational district program is we are ensuring convergence of all the schemes and programs. And that convergence is actually done by NITI Aayog. The same can be said about national monetization pipeline, about which we'll be covering in the infrastructure. Look at this balanced regional development. It is being promoted through Island Development Agency. And NITI Aayog has also set up a separate forum for northeastern region for the development of northeastern part of India. See, what matters in mains is if you just write that NITI Aayog is promoting balanced regional development, no validation. You have to substantiate how it is actually promoting that balanced regional development by quoting these examples. Fine. Planning Commission was more of centralized. It hurt the federalism in India. But NITI Aayog says that it is trying to promote cooperative federalism as well as competitive federalism. When I say cooperative federalism, means coordination between center and states. When I say competitive federalism, means fostering competition among the states so that the states compete with each other to get better outcomes. Example, when I say cooperative federalism, can you see what NITI Aayog is actually doing? It is encouraging the states in India to set up state institution for transformation. Same like how we have NITI Aayog at the national level, state level need to have a separate dedicated institutions. As part of competitive federalism, NITI Aayog is publishing SDG India Index as well as Export Preparedness Index. Fine. Next, you can see NITI Aayog does not have the power to transfer finances, which is a good thing. And I have also told you that the very fact that NITI Aayog does not have the power to transfer finances has improved the federalism in India. The reason being states are now getting more share from where? Finance Commission. And that is mostly untied. And lastly, NITI Aayog has comparatively less powers now as compared to Planning Commission. Can you see this is actually a kind of answer as to why was Planning Commission replaced with NITI Aayog? And if you get such a question, you know the best way to approach an answer to that question? Tabular format. Hai na? So where on one side of the table you highlight these are the problems with the Planning Commission and these problems were sought to be addressed by NITI Aayog. That's it. Clear with that? But like I said, what is important now is carrying out a critical analysis of NITI Aayog. Why is it important? NITI Aayog formed in 2014-15. Now we are in 2024. It has been almost a decade. So it's the right time to carry out a critical analysis. So let's understand the role of NITI Aayog, critical analysis. Please have a look at the points one by one. One of the biggest problem with NITI Aayog right now is it does not enjoy legitimacy and it does not have a strong leadership. It does not enjoy legitimacy because it is not a statutory body. It does not have that leadership because the chairperson of NITI Aayog is not directly answerable to the parliament. So look at the suggestion there. Suggestion, NITI Aayog should be set up as a statutory body. And second, the chairperson of NITI Aayog should get the status of a cabinet minister. In fact, he should be given the title of Minister for Economic Development and Planning, and he should be invited to all the cabinet meetings. This is the suggestion given by a number of economists. Second, so far, NITI Aayog has published one document. I hope some of you must have read this document as well. India at 75. That's it. No vision document actually. What NITI Aayog says, we are focusing on strategic planning. Very strategic planning when there is no vision document. And I do think it is a right opportunity for NITI Aayog to come up with a vision document, because what are we now having vision? The vision is to become Viksit Bharat by end of 2047. So prepare vision document for Viksit Bharat by 2047 with a medium term target to become $7 trillion economy. Clear with that? Third, there is increase in inequalities within the Indian economy. So what NITI Aayog should try to do, it should focus on what is called as redistributive planning. Redistributive planning means planning in such a manner which leads to redistribution of income. In particular, it should also focus upon reducing the gender disparities. Clear with that? Okay. Next, you can see, like I said, one of the role of NITI Aayog should be to ensure proper coordination between ministries and departments. I gave an example of education. The problem is, right now, NITI Aayog's role is mostly confined to publishing the important indices. Like NITI Aayog will publish SDG index or health index. Its role is not just publishing the index, you must understand. Its role should also be to achieve coordination between the ministries to ensure that the targets are met. So that's what I mentioned. Coordination should be important. Next, you can see NITI Aayog should play a more proactive role in facilitating private sector investment, because the private sector investment in India is declining. And lastly, so far we are not focused a lot on decentralized planning. So we need to encourage states to set up their own institutions for planning. I'm not sure how many of you heard this. Tamil Nadu government has actually come up with a vision document. The vision document of Tamil Nadu government is to create $1 trillion economy. Don't you think the same vision documents, similar kind of vision documents should be adopted by other states? The role of NITI Aayog should be to encourage the states to prepare their own vision document. So that is what is the critical analysis of NITI Aayog. Public-private partnership in social sector, like social sector in education, health, like we can have district hospitals in public-private partnership. We'll cover that. We have a separate topic of public-private partnership. We'll cover that, not worry. I hope everyone is clear with this. Okay. Okay, we can just look at this question. What factors led to replacement of Planning Commission by NITI Aayog? Critically analyze the role of NITI Aayog in India's planning since 2014. You already know what were the problems with Planning Commission. I told you how will you do that. You can put it in a tabular format. With respect to critical analysis of NITI Aayog, you can highlight some concerns with NITI Aayog and what has to be done. I think that slide which I showed you, that itself is like a answer template.
Excuse me, sir.
Harpreet.
Sir, when the keyword is critically analyzed, so do we also need to mention the advantages or the merits?
Come again, if?
Sir, when question demand is critically analyzed,
हाँ.
सर उसमें हम थोड़े एडवांटेजेस भी देंगे या सिर्फ हम
Okay,
drawback
when
की
I
बात
say
करेंगे?
critically analyze, please understand, critically analyze means you have to write certain points in favor also, certain points against also. You have to present both the sides of the coin and then take a stand on that. So when we say critically analyze of role of NITI Aayog, you have to highlight some positives of NITI Aayog and then focus upon the problems with NITI Aayog. Clear, Harpreet?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You tell me, I was coming to that only. What can be the introduction?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So then what is the difference between critically analyze and evaluate?
Okay. See, when I use the word evaluate, discuss, examine, analyze, all of this means the same. Please do not fall into this trap of decoding the keywords. All of this means the same. You have to just discuss various facets of the answer. That's it. The only problem is when you come across the keyword, which is critically analyze. See, when I say critically analyze, means the statement is a matter of debate. It has both positives as well as negatives. So what you have to do, you have to present both positives and negatives, and then you need to take a stand on that. When I say discuss, analyze, examine, it might not necessarily be debatable. Now, for example, let's say mobilization of savings is crucial to become a $7 trillion economy. Evaluate. Is it a matter of debate? It's not a matter of debate. Yes, it is true. So it could be evaluate, it could be discuss, it could be examine or analysis. Clear with that? Yes, Vishnu, I hope it's clear.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I've just incorporated the suggested answer structure. You can just have a look at it. I hope you should be able to go through once I share the PPT. Okay. What we're going to do now is please go through this also, relevance of planning in the market-led economy. What I'm going to do now, it's almost similar to the plan NITI Aayog only, not worry. We are going to focus on this, that is the growth. So if you focus on the topics which I've covered with respect to planning, I think that is more than sufficient. Let's focus on the next theme, that is growth. Look at all the practice questions which I've incorporated. Have a look at the practice questions. The first question is, mobilization of savings is crucial for realization of $7 trillion economy. Explain the statement. When I say explain the statement, it means you have to actually prove as to how savings will help us become a $7 trillion. Logically, you have to prove it. And look at the second part of the question. What are the challenges in mobilization of savings in India? And there's a second one. I told you recent decline in the net financial savings of the household. So let's start with these topics one by one, starting with mobilization of savings. Okay. This is a value addition for growth and development. All the data is incorporated, not just the data. I've incorporated important case studies also wherever they are relevant. Okay, fine. And do not worry about how will you remember the data. Like I said, I will be repeating the data multiple times. You will be able to remember it. Okay. So let me tell you the savings in India. With respect to savings, what I'm going to do now, first we'll understand what do you mean by savings, meaning of savings. Second, how savings will lead to $7 trillion economy. I will prove that. And then what is the present status of savings? All of that I shall be discussing in probably next half an hour. After that, we will discuss the answers to this particular question. Okay. Let's start with the savings. Okay. When we say savings, according to RBI, the savings in India can be in the form of deposits with the banks. It can be investment in shares, bonds, government securities. It can be in the form of small saving schemes. It can be in the form of insurance or pension. Mutual funds also. All of this constitute the savings in India, right? This is what RBI says. Please do not think that they are investment. Yes, they are investment, but economically, we consider them as savings, right? 30 seconds. Can someone prove to me as to why savings will help us become $7 trillion economy? Prove it. And when I say prove, you have to logically prove it. Not that saying कि चलो investment बढ़ जाएगा. वो मुझे भी पता है. Yes, money multiplier is one. Good. I hope you know the concept of money multiplier. Huh? Provision of more loans. Good. One important point which I can highlight here. What will happen is there will be more deposits with the banks. When banks have more deposits, banks can give more amount of loans at lower rate of interest. Good. So increase in deposits will lead to decrease in the rate of interest on loans. So it will lead to increase in investment. Apart from that, second point, people are also investing in shares and bonds. And when they invest in shares and bonds, who is actually getting money? Companies. So companies in India, private sector companies, they are having access to what? Capital. Third, as far as government is concerned, government will be able to finance its deficit. You know, fiscal deficit. What is a major source of financing fiscal deficit in India? Government securities. It's a major source of financing fiscal deficit. Second major source. What is the second major source of financing fiscal deficit? NSSF. Securities issued against the National Small Savings Fund. So you must be knowing when people put their money in small savings, all of that money goes into National Small Savings Fund, and government withdraws money from NSSF to finance its fiscal deficit. The benefit for the government here, you must know, if government is financing its deficit from savings within India, can I say that there is lower reliance on foreign loans? Why should we go and borrow money from outside India when we can borrow money within India? That is why, if you look at India's debt, internal debt and external debt, whose share is higher? Internal debt share is higher. Getting this point? Everyone? Okay. Apart from that, can I also say that if people are saving more amount of money, imports into India will reduce? Because you're saving more, you are actually buying less goods from outside India. So imports into India will reduce. Concentrate here. 1, 2, 3. All of these factors will lead to increase in GCF. I hope you know GCF, gross capital formation. GDP is actually measured as private final consumption expenditure plus gross capital formation, government final consumption expenditure plus net exports. So when we are saving more amount of money, gross capital formation of the government is increasing in India. Second, government final consumption expenditure is also increasing because the government is financing its deficit. It is able to borrow easily. Next. Look at this, net exports. It is actually calculated as total exports minus total imports. If you are saving more money, imports is reducing. We are making more investment. If you are making more investment, what is happening to our exports? Exports is increasing. So what do you think is happening to our net exports? Net exports is increasing. The three main drivers of Indian economy, they are increasing. This is what I say, logically proving the things. Any doubts so far? Gross fixed capital formation is investment in the economy. You're not studied in foundation? Okay, I'll discuss it after the class. I hope you don't mind. It's an advanced course, right? I cannot start discussing GCF and all those things. I hope it is clear, everyone. Yes, Shashank?
But the PFC will also increase, right?
Which,
Because since there is more saving, then people will go for more
we'll come to that.
expenditure.
We'll come to that. I'm deliberately keeping it aside. Do not worry.
Okay, sir.
I'll come to that. Okay.
Good
So
evening,
far, so
sir.
clear?
Good evening, sir.
Rajnish.
Can you explain it again? How saving is reducing the imports?
When people are saving more money, it means that people are spending less. If people are spending less, it means they are demanding less of imported goods. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Sir, but sir, why are we blurring the distinction between savings and investments?
Come again?
Why are we blurring the distinction between savings and investments by calling
Because they're
this
two different things. They are two different things, Shiva. We'll
But
come to
sir,
that.
the definition you gave included bonds, GSECs, etc., which are essentially
That
investments.
is the definition as per RBI. And once the next topic is investment, in that topic of investment, you'll actually get to know in what way investment is different from savings. Hold on.
But sir, we are saying that GCF is increasing as savings are increasing. So how we explain that?
Come again?
GCF is increasing as savings are increasing.
I'm saying the other way. Savings is increasing, GCF is increasing. When savings increases, don't you think investment increases?
Saved money is invested, you can say.
As simple as that. You save more money in deposits, banks can give more loans. Credit creation, investment increases. Right, Shiva?
Oh, okay, sir. Got it.
Okay. So because of all of these factors, can I say that the GDP of country will increase? I'm deliberately not bringing in PFC. There's a reason, you'll understand. As the GDP increases, can I say the income of the people will also increase? And here, let's say increase in income of the people is more than the increase in the expenditure. It's like saying every year income is increasing by 10%, but expenditure is increasing by 6%. Increase in income level is more than the increase in expenditure. What will happen to savings? Increases. And that is what you get, a virtuous economic cycle. And let me tell you, this is what Economic Survey 2018-19 has said. India's growth model should be like this. Investment-led model. And what investment, from where are we getting? By mobilizing the savings. I hope everyone is convinced with this. Everyone? Virtuous economic cycle is a self-sustaining cycle. Okay? Still not convinced? Two empirical evidences. These days, we keep on comparing India with China. If you see savings rate in China during its high growth phase, savings rate in China had increased to almost around 40% of its GDP. So what China did? Higher savings, it channelized towards investment, and it was able to sustain a high growth momentum. You must be wondering, if China was able to do it, why not India? It's not that we did not try it. In fact, we also tried doing it. For example, in India, the first 5-year plan, all of you are more aware of second 5-year plan, Mahalanobis model. But first 5-year plan, let me tell you, it was based upon a model called as Herod-Domer model. Herod-Domer model was this: mobilization of savings to promote investment. Is that clear? Okay. So what is the present status of savings in India? The trends in terms of savings. If you see the trends in savings, the gross domestic savings in India, it comprises of savings by the households. It comprises savings by the public sector. It comprises savings by the private sector. All of this together, it was around 34% in the year 2011-12. We express this as percentage of GDP. It was 34% in the year 2011-12. What do you think has happened now? Has it increased or decreased? It has actually seen a decline. From 34%, it has now declined to 30% in the year 22-23. It's actually bad, right? Because like I said, we need to mobilize the savings to have a $7 trillion economy. Out of 1, 2, 3, who do you think contributes the largest chunk of savings? Households. Household savings is almost around 18%. Out of 30%, household saving is 18%. So it may say, in a way, it is like 60% of savings in India is contributed by households. Is that clear? So this is an important trend. Where can you use this trend? while writing a introduction about the savings. I'll just show you how can you write an answer. Clear with that, everyone? So now try to generate points with respect to how mobilization of savings will help us achieve $7 trillion economy. You have to have points. Just look at the diagram. From this diagram itself, you get multiple points. Hai na? But like I said, to generate points, you have to have that pillar approach. And I told you I'll prove you how can you generate points by using that pillar approach. Let me see. Let me show you that. Is that clear? Everyone is okay with this? Do not worry. I've asked you not to write because it is there here. Do not worry about it. Okay? Okay. Pillar 1 is growth and development, where our main focus is on GDP. And for GDP, for measurement of GDP, what all things are important is PFCE, gross capital formation, GFCE plus net exports. But apart from all of this, you must also understand that for increasing our GDP size, there are other important factors also. For example, we need technology. We need to invest in research and development. Can I say even people are as important as technology? We need to harness the demographic dividend, right? And what is equally important is the productivity. Productivity means how efficiently are you able to utilize the available factors of production, the resources. So that is pillar 1. Pillar 2 is budgeting. Pillar 3 is agriculture. Pillar 4 is industry. Pillar 5 is infrastructure. Now, my question to you was, how mobilization of savings will help us achieve the vision of $7 trillion economy? Can I generate points from each of this? When you look at this point, GDP, can I write that it will create a self-sustaining, virtuous economic cycle? 1 point, you got it there. Second point, it will help us increase the gross capital formation. Can you give some empirical evidence here to support this? China. China's example you can give, like 40% savings in China led to increase in investment. Can I say the net exports will increase because imports will reduce and exports will increase? Budgeting, it will help us finance the fiscal deficit. And anything else apart from that? Where will be our borrowings more? Internal borrowings. So we will have a higher share of our internal debt. I hope it is clear, everyone. Probably with respect to agriculture, it's very difficult to generate points here. Same can be said about industry, but we can say that the investment that we mobilize, that investment can be used to create world-class infrastructure. So we can have at least 5 to 6 points ready-made to highlight as to why mobilization of savings will help us become a $7 trillion economy. We can do that. Yeah. So it's not necessary that you should try to find points in each and every pillar. It is just a framework from that framework, you can actually find, okay, this point can fix here. Getting it, everyone?
So in budgeting,
Huh.
can we say that it will lead to crowding of private sector investments also, because a lot of savings are being generated, so a lot of companies
Crowding out private sector investment is a
crowding
negative
in.
point, right?
So crowding in, I'm saying, not
Crowding in, you can
crowding
say
in
that
private
as well.
sector investment.
Yes, yes, you can say that. That's a good point. Good, Prakrit.
So,
Yeah.
so in the budgeting pillar, can we say that with rising savings, people's power of getting insurance will increase, so government will focus less on schemes like Ayushman for health insurance
Yeah,
and
I think he has a very good point. If people have more access to insurance, pension, then the need for the government to provide the social welfare to the public will reduce. So expenditure burden on the government will reduce. Good point. सारे points कहाँ से आ रहे हैं? The framework से आ रहे हैं, right? Good. Is that clear? Okay. Now, if I may ask, what do you think are the factors determining the savings in India? One most important factor, if I could ask you, the factor affecting saving is the income level of the people. Higher the income, higher the savings. The second factor is how much money people are actually spending. If they spend more, savings will be less, and vice versa. Third factor is the rate of inflation. If prices of goods and service increases, the savings of the people will get eroded. And there's another important aspect. It also depends upon the demography also. If a country is facing demographic dividend, so when you say demographic dividend, we tend to focus more on the working age population. But there's another aspect of demographic dividend, which is there is low dependency ratio. Low dependency ratio means we have less number of children and less number of senior citizens. More people are there in the working age group. So can I say the burden on the younger population to take care of children and senior citizens is less? So उससे क्या होगा? Savings is likely to be higher. Getting it? Apart from that, it also depends upon the household debt. How much money they have borrowed. If they borrowed heavily, interest burden will be higher. If their interest burden is higher, savings will be less. Clear? Further, it also depends upon financial inclusion. To what extent people are integrated into the financial system of a country. When I say financial system of a country, it means whether people have bank account, whether people have access to capital market, that is share, bonds, whether people have access to insurance or pension. It depends upon the financial inclusion. Can I also say that having bank account alone is not sufficient? What is also equally important is what is the rate of interest on deposits? Only when rate of interest on deposit is higher, don't you think we'll be able to mobilize the savings? Clear with that? You can also say certain government policies. Example, if you make investment in certain small saving schemes, such as public provident fund, you can claim that as a tax exemption. So government can design policies in such a manner to encourage savings by the people. Is that clear, everyone? Now, tell me, what are the problems in mobilization of savings in India? Huh? What challenges are we facing with respect to mobilization of savings?
So
The
banking habits of
points are right in front of you. I have not done anything exceptional. Tell me, have I done anything exceptional? I've just told you what are the factors affecting savings. By knowing what are the factors affecting savings, you are able to generate points with respect to what are the challenges in mobilization of savings. Look at the first point. Income level of people is less. Per capita income of Indians is around 2000 US dollars. India is ranking 142 among 197 countries in terms of per capita income. Yes, we take pride in saying that we are the 5th largest economy, but there's other side of India as well, where the per capita income of India is actually lower than our next door neighbors such as Bangladesh. Per capita income is lower. When you see GDP, private final consumption expenditure, GCF, GFCE, plus net exports, which is the major driver of Indian economy. This is 60%. Major driver of Indian economy is what? Consumption expenditure. So expenditure in India is actually higher. Inflation, can I say last year or last year, the rate of inflation in India was on the higher side. Household debt. Let me tell you, household debt in India has increased to all-time high of 40% of GDP. All-time high. If people have borrowed so much heavily, people will need to pay interest. And people pay interest, savings will reduce. Financial inclusion. Yes, Jan Dhan Yojana is a huge success. I'm not denying it. Neither will I do it. But the problem is just having access to bank account is not sufficient. Financial literacy is also equally important, which is evident from the fact that 20% of Jan Dhan accounts are inoperative. Inoperative means people have opened Jan Dhan accounts and forgot about it. Capital market. You know that recently, especially during COVID, people started investing in share market. The number of demat accounts in India, I hope you know demat accounts. Number of demat accounts in India has increased to 16 crores. Achievement. But look at our population and look at the number of demat accounts. Small percentage. Getting it? Insurance, pension, people's insurance density is quite lower. Government policies. Can someone say something about this? Recently, government has done something which is actually discouraging people from savings.
The increasing
indexation benefit.
Capital.
Indexation benefit, very good, which was there in the
So plus the
budget.
long-term and short-term capital gains have also been increased in the budget.
Long-term and short-term, that is there. And let me tell you another important point. Government has introduced a new tax regime. In the new tax regime, there is no tax exemptions. And the advantage that you get is the tax rate is lower. You can either opt for old tax regime or new tax regime. In old tax regime, you can take advantage of tax exemptions. Tell me why so many people used to invest in Provident Fund. or let's say shares, mutual funds, because they thought they can claim that as a tax deduction. Now people have an option to shift to new tax regime where they can afford to pay less tax rate. So when people start shifting to new tax regime, it is obviously going to discourage the savings as well. Clear, everyone? So with respect to savings in India, we discussed the present status of savings. We discussed the significance of savings, why savings are so much important. Then we discussed the challenges in mobilization of savings, right? So let me just show you. Please have a look at the point. Increase, that is what we are going to cover. It had increased. Is there any point which you want me to explain?
Sir, can you explain why we couldn't do the way China did?
Which one? Like what China did. Like I said, we had all of these problems with respect to mobilization of savings. We did try to do that, but the problem, the biggest problem in India is our economy is mainly consumption driven. When the consumption expenditure is higher, obviously savings would be lower.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
So
Yes, Shashank?
this Harrod-Domer model, was it in first SIP or the second SIP?
Was it?
The Harrod-Domer
It is
model
first
was,
5-year plan. It is first 5-year plan.
okay, I think, sir, it's written second here in this slide.
Where?
In the slides.
Okay. Sorry. I'll change it when I'm sharing it. It's first 5-year plan. Is that clear, everyone? Okay. Now, there is this topic about decline in the net financial savings of the households. This had created a lot of controversy. And remember, I told you at the start of the class, this controversy was similar to the controversy of V-shaped economic recovery. Let's understand the controversy. Okay, like I said before, gross domestic savings is equal to savings by the households, savings by the public sector, and savings by the private sector. This is what we discussed. And how much is the gross domestic savings right now? 30%. Has it increased or decreased? Decreased from 34 to 30. I told you, remember this. The gross domestic savings reduced from 34 to 30%. No. Well, sure. I'll show. If you go back, this gets erased. Okay. With respect to household, households contribute how much? 18%. That's what we discussed. Let's forget about public and private. Our main focus is on household savings. Household savings, once again, it is categorized into two types. One is net financial savings, and the other one is physical savings. And when I say physical savings is in the form of house, gold, as well as silver, precious items. Like I said, you might be having this doubt. This is an investment. This is not a saving. But that is how we categorize savings in India. You can't question the design. Financial savings, I've already said, it is in the form of deposits, shares, bonds, government securities, small savings, insurance, pension. But the word which is important here is what? Net financial savings. The net financial savings is actually calculated as financial assets minus financial liabilities. And when I say liabilities means what? Borrowings. Financial savings plus physical savings together, how much it is? 18%. Right now, where do you think households save more amount of money? Physical savings. It is 13%. And this has now got reduced to 5%. I told you the net financial savings of the household has got reduced to 47-year low. 5-decade low of how much? 5%. If you see average net financial savings for the last decade, this was around 7.5. By how much it has got reduced? 2.5. And this has become a controversy. On one side, government says nothing to worry. But economists says it is actually a cause of worry, because I told you savings are quite important for becoming a $7 trillion economy, right? So let's see. Before concluding anything, I think we need to know the reason as to why this net financial savings actually got reduced. What you must understand is both financial assets and financial liabilities both have increased. But the problem is the financial liabilities have increased more than the financial assets. Net effect means decline. So सबसे पहले the financial liabilities or the borrowings of the household has increased, especially in last 2 to 3 years. What happened that households have borrowed more amount of money? Do you think during COVID people will borrow money? I don't think so. During COVID and just after COVID, what kind of policy was RBI following? Expansionary monetary policy. Expansionary monetary policy, the rate of interest was less. So, because the rate of interest on the loans was lower in the last 2 years, people started borrowing. People would also want to take advantage of this. So financial liabilities increase. And that is why I told you household debt in India has increased to all-time high of how much? 40% of GDP. Clear with that? Second reason. Financial assets, I'm not saying that they have decreased. Financial assets have also increased. But this increase in financial assets is lower. Why? What happened in last year? Why do you think financial assets reduced just last year? Like deposits, shares, bonds, small saving schemes. Last year, what happened?
Inflation.
Very good point. How much inflation rate are we targeting? 2 to 6%. But do you know, almost like last year, the rate of inflation consistently remained above 6%. So when prices of the goods and service increase, savings will reduce. Clear with that? Third point is, people have shifted from financial to physical. People had deposits with them. So deposits, they have converted into physical savings. Question once again, why? Why will people buy a house, or why will people buy a gold, especially last year? As far as house is concerned, after the COVID-19, the real estate market started booming. So people started buying houses. To buy houses, from where will they use the money? From their deposits. Second, during inflation, tell me what will happen to price of gold? Price of gold will increase. So people will prefer more amount of gold. So people have shifted from financial savings to physical savings, particularly house and gold. That is the third reason. Fourth and most important is drawdown of excess savings accumulated during when? COVID-19. So you must understand, COVID-19 created a lot of uncertainty, right? Because of that uncertainty, people started saving more money. I told you, average decadal savings rate was how much? 7.5. During COVID, you'll be surprised to know it increased to how much? 11.5. People started saving more money, which is quite understandable. But when the lockdown was lifted, when things got resumed, people were sure that yes, our jobs are safe, our income is safe. So what happened to these savings of the people which got accumulated during COVID? They started spending. Have you heard of what is called as pent up demand? So this was a pent up demand in the economy. People started spending that savings immediately when the lockdown was lifted. So these are some of the reasons as to why the net financial savings of the households reduced. Clear? Let's understand what the government says. That is really important. Government says, no worries at all. The net financial savings of the household has reduced to 5%, lowest in last 47 years. Government says, do not worry. Why? Because government says savings have got reduced because people have used their excess savings. And this excess savings was responsible to have V-shaped recovery. Now, sudden sharp rebound in economy. From where did it come? Pent up demand. From where did people spend that money? From this savings. Clear? Second, government says, why are you worrying so much? People have only shifted from financial savings to physical savings. What was supposed to be in the form of deposit at the bank is now converted into a house. Why should you worry so much? So government says only shift from financial to physical. Third, government says savings has got reduced because of what? Inflation. Inflation is what? Short term. If inflation reduces, automatically क्या होगा? Savings will increase. So government says, no worry, because this is only for short. 1, 2, 3, 4 points. This point government has highlighted. This point government has highlighted. This point government has highlighted. The problem, let me tell you, government is completely silent with respect to the first point. And that is where I think the real problem lies. Why is it a cause of concern? If I could ask you, from 7.5, it has got reduced to 5, 2.5. 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons. Among these 4 reasons, there should be one dominant reason, right? Which is that dominant reason? This is the dominant reason. Household liabilities debt has increased to 40% of GDP. The problem here is if household debt increases, think of it, interest burden on the households will increase. If interest burden increases, what will happen to savings? Is it short term or long term? Long term. Because they are borrowed long term loans. If savings reduce in the long term, where's the vision of $7 trillion economy? I just now proved what is the most important factor to become a $7 trillion economy. Savings. Clear with that? Second problem, if household debt increases, households might fall into a kind of debt trap. And if they fall into a debt trap, what will happen to the financial position of the banks? Financial position of the banks would deteriorate. NPAs, non-performing assets of the banks, will increase. How many of you know? Now, this is where I'm going to make a real point. How many of you know about twin balance sheet problem? You know about twin balance sheet? Okay. When I say twin balance sheet problem, it means on one side, balance sheet of the companies is dominated by higher level of debt and they are unable to repay the debt. If companies are unable to repay the debt, what will happen to financial position of banks? It will come to be dominated by more of NPAs. Pretty simple. Indian economy did not grow as much as we expected it to be in last 7 to 8 years because of this twin balance sheet problem. Can you see the repeat of that particular problem happening once again? Except the fact that this time it is not companies, this time it is households. We could see a repeat of twin balance sheet problem where balance sheet of the households is dominated by more of debt. And if households do not repay debt, NPAs of the banks will increase. What will happen to investment? Investment will reduce. Clear with that? So like I said, it's a matter of debate. क्या करना चाहिए ऐसे क्वेश्चन में? Do you think the recent decline in the net financial savings of the household is a cause of concern? What should you do? I have presented both the sides of the argument and both are equally compelling. What should be your answer? Yes, it is a problem, but government says no, it's not a problem. Ji. Huh. It is getting locked up. I understand. It is getting locked up. It is not coming out into the investment. Good, good. But you should take a balanced opinion on that, right? So if you ask me, I do think Either decline in the net financial savings of the household, if it is a short-term blip, short-term problem, as the government highlights, absolutely not a problem at all. But if it is a long-term situation, if it is continuing, if it is going to continue for long run, then obviously it is a problem. So I think we cannot have a black and white picture here. I think we have to see whether it is for short term or whether it is for long. Clear, everyone?
Excuse me, sir.
You can wait 1 second, Shiva. You can even understand if it is short term, don't you think it is not a cause of concern actually? But if it is going for long term, if people continue to shift from financial savings to physical savings, if inflation is going to be higher, if households continue to draw down their excess savings, then there's a problem. Huh, Shiva?
Yes, sir. So regarding this first point, the increase in liabilities, you said that during COVID-19 pandemic, RBI followed expansionary policy and they reduced the rate of interest to promote increased lending, and that's why the loans, financial debt increased of households. But sir, during that time, there were reports that people were afraid of spending and due to uncertainties.
I'm not
So
saying during COVID. Obviously, during COVID, no one was willing to take loans. I'm saying
Yes.
immediately after COVID, to promote the growth of economy, RBI followed expansionary policy.
like post-COVID, this thing
Yeah,
is happening.
post-pandemic.
अच्छा, अच्छा, ठीक है, got it.
Clear with that, everyone? Which one?
Yeah.
I think the only way out is to ensure that the more of savings has to be mobilized. So I told you the challenges with respect to mobilization of savings. I think those challenges needs to be addressed. That's only long term. Tax policies. I think one way is that, when I say debt, you must have seen that suddenly the share of unsecured personal loans has increased in India. The same concern has been highlighted by RBI as well. Unsecured loans, non-collateral based loans. So RBI has already taken some action in this regard, where it has decided to assign higher credit risk to the unsecured personal loans. But banks also have to be equally careful about this. Because last time when twin balance sheet problem happened, banks were indiscriminately lending to companies whose ability to give back loans was less. The same thing should not repeat now. No, that is different. That is different. That is different. Clear? Okay. Please have a look at this. Okay, whatever I explained, the same thing is there, right? So please go to that. Lastly, okay, please look at this question. Mobilization of savings is crucial for the realization of $7 trillion economy. Explain the statement. Discuss various challenges in mobilization of savings in India. Okay. So most of the students who have attended my foundation class, as well as students who have attended my previous year QIP, they know about a 5-step approach to answer writing. But there are some students who might not be knowing. For the benefit of those students, I'm discussing this 5-step approach to answer writing. Use this particular approach to write any answer in the Indian economy. What is that 5-step? Let me just tell you. In step 1, what you need to do, you need to identify the central theme of the question. Central theme. Like the question which I showed you, mobilization of savings is important to become a $7 trillion economy. The central theme of this particular question is savings, right? Step 2, what you need to do, identify different dimensions of the central theme. Whatever is the central theme, identify the different dimensions. And let me tell you, these dimensions in economy are universal. When I say universal means they are applicable to all the questions. What are the dimensions? It could be meaning, and let's say significance, present status, benefits, challenges, initiatives, and look at this, strategies. Mostly they'll remain same in most of the question. In fact, I'll show you also how they'll remain same. Identify the different dimensions and they will almost remain same. Step 3, what you need to do is identify the dimension which is explicitly asked in the question itself. जो क्वेश्चन में पूछा गया है, explicitly which is asked, that dimension which is explicitly asked in the question, that dimension actually becomes the body of the answer directly. Look at that question which I showed you. Mobilization of savings is crucial for achieving the vision of $7 trillion economy. Explain the statement. What is the dimension? Mobilization of savings, benefits. What are the challenges in mobilization of savings? Second part. So can I say here, benefits and challenges directly become the body of the answer? Clear with that? Step 4. Other dimensions can be used as a intro. It can be used as a conclusion, or it could be used as a kind of supporting pillar. We can support the answer. What do you think is the best intro to this particular question? You can actually start with the present status. Don't you think writing meaning of savings will look too juvenile actually? You can start with the present status. That is the best intro. Conclusion क्या हो सकता है? Because you are writing about the problems or challenges in mobilization of savings, the right conclusion to give suggestions. Strategies can become your conclusion. So this is your intro and this is your conclusion. I hope we are clear. So this is step 4. Step 5. I told you, you need to do value addition to this particular keyword. Budget, case studies, committees, diagrams, economic survey, and facts and figures. I don't have anything from budget, or probably I can use some points related to budget with respect to what? The challenges. I can use that points. Case study, can I use some case study of savings? I gave it two example. One case study is of China and other case study is Herod-Domer model. The case study is there. Can I use diagram? Virtuous economic cycle. So when you're writing benefits, that is why savings are important, explain the statement. The best way to explain it is to make that self-sustaining virtuous economic cycle. Facts. Data is already there. Where? Present status. Clear with that? Everyone? That is what you have to do. Just remember this 5-step approach. And let me tell you, this approach will help you to write any answer in the Indian economy. And let's say if I change the question. The question is like this. Mobilization of savings is crucial for achieving the vision of $7 trillion economy. However, it faces multifaceted challenges. Discuss. What is the question focusing on? Which is the main focus? It is not focusing on the benefits. It is more focused upon the challenges. So, आपके body of the answer में what will you focus on? You'll focus on the challenges. But would you neglect the benefits completely? What you should do? You should use it as a supporting pillar. That's it. So like I said, based upon the demand of the question, your answer writing approach will change. But what I am doing is, I am giving everything related to savings at one particular place. You just have to pick and choose which theme should you focus on and which theme should you not focus on. Clear with that, everyone? Okay, I actually wanted to complete the investment topic also today, but it's already 6:15. It has been a long class, I can understand. So we'll continue tomorrow, right? So I just want to show you the suggested answer structure. Just hold on. So what I will can say is there are some questions related to planning, right? There were 3 questions. You can pick 1 or 2 questions from planning and probably write an answer to that, right? And do not worry, I'll be sharing the PPT today itself. You'll get the PPT. Fine. So I'll meet you tomorrow, same time, 3:30. Any doubts, meanwhile, with respect to what we discussed? I hope it is not very fast.
Sir, I have 2 questions.
It's not very fast? Okay, thank you. No doubts, right?
Sir, can I ask a couple of questions?
Yeah, Deepak, tell me.
Sir, for 10 marker and 15 marker, how many points is it expected to write in the answer?
Come again?
How many points is it expected to write in 10 marker and 15 marker?
Okay, if it is a 10 marker, at least write around, I would say 5 to 6 points. And if it is a 15 marker, write around, I would say 8 to 10 points.
And should we elaborate on each point or just mention and give an example or data?
To make you understand, how should be a bullet points? He has a very good question. Should you explain the point? To make you understand how should you actually write bullet points, we can just look at this. These are the actual bullet points you can directly replicate in the answer. Can you see? enable capital formation. So Deepak, the way I have mentioned, you can just mention that.
Yes, sir. Understood. Thank you.
Okay, so there's no need of detailed elaboration, but at least there should be a statement actually explaining that.
Understood. Understood. Thank
Okay, okay. Yes, anyone else from the online batch? Any doubts?
Excuse me, sir.
Anand?
Good evening, sir. Sir, first of all, thank you for this wonderful approach to answer writing. I wanted to ask one more thing. Like, while we are dealing with economic questions, can we add economic theory? For example, when it comes to demographic.
Do not do that. It will become optional.
Okay, sir. So, is it better to completely avoid all those?
It is better to avoid the knowledge from your optional. So do not use any economic theories.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
So
sure.
can I add a point to his question? What about other dimensions of the paper like environment, science and tech or
To a
politics?
certain extent, the dimensions will remain same, but the value addition points might change. For example, in polity, the value addition points could be like Supreme Court judgment, the second ARC reports.
Yeah. So we can use those in economy answers as well, right? It's not.
Do not use those things in economy. Economy just limit to the
Economy
value
itself.
addition points which I've mentioned.
Okay.
Okay.
Sir, what
Yes.
are arm of workbooks?
What are?
Workbooks, arm of workbooks mentioned in advertisement of RAU'S.
Okay, this is basically the workbook which I've introduced for the benefit of foundation batch students, which will help them to prepare on a day-to-day basis. It's more of a mentorship book.
Okay, so it will be given to
You'll be
QIP
getting it.
students.
You'll be getting it. We have designed it. It is in the process of releasing it. Economy, we have just prepared it. It will be released for the foundation batch students. The idea is like, let's say in the class, we have covered the topic of RBI. How do you know whether you have understood the topic of RBI? So you can go back from that particular workbook. You can solve very simple questions related to RBI. I'm not saying that the same questions will be asked in UPSC prelims, but those questions will help you understand whether you have you understood the chapter of RBI or not. Okay, so that probably will get it. Do not worry.
Okay,
Sir?
sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
Yes, Mohit?
are we supposed to send the practice questions to you on WhatsApp?
Yeah, you can send it to me on the WhatsApp.
Okay.
Okay. Fine. Thank you so much. I'll meet you tomorrow, 3:30.